In this last video in our series, we want to talk about how to assess and grade participation in a Socratic seminar. So we've talked about how to prepare for seminar, both in terms of setting up the structure, how to choose texts, how to create questions, participate in the seminar, how to kind of debrief after the seminar. And now we want to finally talk about how we might want to grade for participation. So really there are two ways to assess participation, and they kind of are in two camps. One is if you really want to require participation in the seminar, like speaking during the seminar as part of your grade, and another if you don't really want to require seminar participation, but you want to make sure that people are kind of not zoning out of the seminar, they're treating it seriously and things like that. So there are reasons to do both. So let's talk about requiring seminar participation first, and how you would go about doing that. So the reasons for requiring seminar participation are obvious. We want as many people as possible to participate. We don't want the discussion to be monopolized by a few voices. And we want to make sure that everyone is treating the seminar seriously and comes really prepared for the seminar and engaged. So you might say each student is required to participate once during seminar, or twice during seminar, or maybe once during the week of seminars that we do. So something like that, whatever you're comfortable with. So here's how you would potentially do that. The most obvious way, and I've seen a lot of people do it this way, is to create sort of a participation chart. So you have the roster in front of you, and you kind of know all of your students, faces to names, things like that. And what you do is for each time a new person participates, you put a check mark by their name. Or if they participate a second time and you want each person to participate twice, you put 2 check marks when they participate twice. Obviously, the advantage to this is it's probably the easiest and most direct way to kind of monitor and assess and grade participation. There's a few downsides, and the biggest downside is that the more you're doing this during seminar, the less you can be a participant in the seminar, which may be a good thing because it also means that, like we've said in other videos, students are controlling the discussion a lot more. For myself, I like to kind of be at least a participant in the seminar so that I'm listening actively to everyone and I'm responding when it's appropriate if I have something to say, just as any other participant. And I feel like I can't really do that if my attention is being drawn to kind of keeping track of participation. So another thing you could do if you wanted to track participation during a seminar, but you didn't want to kind of be bogged down with doing that yourself, is if you're doing a popcorn method, which we've talked about before, where students pair up, and one student is in the inner circle and one part of the pair is in the outer circle. So what you could do is, as part of the sheet that the outer circle participant is filling out, you can actually have them monitor their partner's participation. You could have a question as directly as, how many times did your partner participate in the discussion? So it would be up to them to monitor their partner's participation. And then when they switch, you would do the vice versa. But there is one big disadvantage that I find to requiring participation and kind of monitoring it in these ways. And that is that when you require participation, even though the upside is that everyone is participating, the downside is that people are going to feel maybe a pressure to participate in ways that might make the discussion just feel stilted. So if I know that I have to say something during every seminar, it's going to be hard, especially if other people jump in with points, let's say, that I wanted to make. I'm going to feel like I have to participate just to participate. And I might say something just to say something I might not have said otherwise. Another potential drawback is that we've been hearing more and more in recent years about kind of introverts and how schools in some ways kind of overlook maybe shyer or quieter or more introverted people. Some people just kind of in their thinking approach prefer to kind of sit back and listen to things and absorb things. And it might take them a while to absorb things and figure out what they want to say before they actually go in and say a particular thing. And I find that oftentimes letting students sit back and not have to participate is often productive for them, even if it doesn't look productive in terms of participation. So let's think about what we can do if you don't want to require participation that kind of in some way still assesses participation, but not just speaking participation. One thing we can do, and one thing that I like to employ in my classes, is instead of assessing participation in terms of talking during the seminar, we assess the active engagement with the seminar, which doesn't necessarily mean talking. It could mean listening and absorbing. And one good way to do that is closing with some sort of in-class writing assignment, even a short little assignment afterwards, maybe in the form of an exit ticket. So we might do something like tell students in advance, like during the seminar process, keep track of one or two things that another seminar participant said that you really liked because you either really agreed with it or disagreed with it. Maybe at the end of class, what you can do is say, okay, take that thing and kind of write your thoughts on it. Or you might do something as simple as summarize what went on during the Socratic seminar. Summarize what the topics were that we discussed, the points were that we made, stuff like that, just, briefly. Or you could do something like, did you change your mind on anything during the seminar? So especially if you did a pre-writing assignment and you gave them a question to think about, it might be a good after seminar assessment to say, okay, think about that question. Did anything in the seminar either change your mind or get you thinking about that question? Did the seminar kind of confirm your opinion on that question? Did it get you thinking and challenge your opinion on the question? And just write kind of a little bit of detail that way. Another thing you could do, this is what I do in my classroom as well, is I have what's called a present and prepared grade. So what you do is you sign the sheet at the beginning of class that attests not only that you're here today, so it's in some ways an attendance monitor, but it's also attests that you are prepared for today's seminar, which means you attest that you've read the text, you attest that you have questions that you could bring up if relevant, or something that you could say about the reading. And what I tell students is this doesn't mean you have to participate verbally in the seminar, but it does mean that if there are any lulls in the seminar, or if I just want new voices in the seminar because the same people are talking, I reserve the right to call on anyone who has signed their name to this sheet and say, okay, James, I noticed that you signed the sheet, and it seems like the track that we're on is kind of worn out a little bit. Can you bring up another question or something from the reading that you want to bring up? And my rule to them is to say that if it happens one time that you sign the sheet and cannot do that, you'll lose your entire present and prepared grade for that semester. And the trick is that it rarely happens that I have to call on anyone, first of all. And I usually give them 2 or 3 times when they don't have to sign the sheet for whatever reason. They're not prepared, they didn't understand the reading, they're absent that day, whatever it is. So the rule is that you have 2 or 3 times, whenever it is in your comfort level, where you don't have to sign the sheet. But if you do sign the sheet and I, for whatever reason, call on you, you would lose your total present and prepared grade for the semester if you can't bring in something. Now, what I do, I should addend and say that what I do, because I know that some students clam up under pressure, and they might clam up even if they are prepared, is I tell them if you clam up and I call on you and you sign the sheet and you just clam up, you can come to me after class and bring up something about the reading that we didn't cover in our seminar that would give me kind of some proof that you did the reading. Those are 2 ways to do it if you don't want to grade participation. You can do after class writings, you can do the present and prepared grade. So it really depends on your discretion. It depends on what you think the motivation level of your students are. Do they need that kind of extrinsic motivator to say part of your grade is dependent on you participating verbally in the seminar? Whether you think it creates a less organic discussion by participation, it really depends on a lot of factors, but use your discretion. You might want to maybe start by requiring participation and maybe ask students periodically, is this comfortable for you? Are any of you not comfortable participating and we want to try some other method? But those are, kind of 4 different ways that you can monitor and assess participation in your Socratic seminars.